Well, Meta's decision to stop paying for Australian news content will see regional newsrooms shut down, resulting in the loss of countless local jobs. That's the claim made in exclusive Sky News documentary led by our very own investigations reporter, Jonathan Lee. And Jonathan joins me now. Jono, great to see you. What did you uncover throughout this investigation?
I think what happened in the last better part of a fortnight now is we've seen the true impact of Meta when it pulls out of news content arrangements with Australia. And we already know the hammer blow that regional newsrooms have suffered and experienced over the last decade. And it's very clear to us, as we've been told, that as they continue to lose ever more funding, that they will start to see a further reduction of journalists and newsrooms. Here's the Australian Country Press effectively talking about what this is going to mean for rural journalists.
News services will no doubt be reduced. I mean, it's just a matter of economics that when you don't have the type of revenue coming in the door, that you've got to look at costs, and one of those costs will be journalism resources, unfortunately. And sadly, there will be newspapers which close. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a bluff either. No. This is a business that is really hard to operate as it is, and we've seen how difficult over the last decade, particularly for rural and regional areas, and that's a fabric of society. So when you hear people like that speak about, you know, what this will mean for the regions, it's the regions that are going to suffer first. But not only that, I think, you know, there is a social licence that Facebook has between its users, and it is a monopoly, and the public, and the role it has in society, and it has not done anything about disinformation.
This is one of the big issues, the ethical responsibilities, the civil responsibility, that licence that Facebook or Meta has. And what we're being told is that as we start to lose proper regulated news sources, that it will end up being filled, that space will be filled with content that's YouTubers, that are bloggers, that are people who aren't subject to the same rules and regulations that we are, that try to hold power to account. And the great concern is that that space will end up further destabilising and fracturing our own democracy. Here's Senator Patterson, and we know he often talks about the danger of governments like, you know, the Chinese Communist Party or Russia, but he puts into perspective what this means for Australia.
And I'm very concerned that putting quality news and information off these platforms will just create more space for the Chinese Communist Party, the Russian government, the Iranian government and others to use these platforms to undermine our country. The best antidote to their disinformation is true information, factual information that comes from Australian news media organisations, adequately and appropriately financially supported to do so.
One of the great frustrations here is we look at the many aspects and elements and how this impacts. Media companies are rightfully frustrated because what Facebook is saying is we won't pay for any more content. You're welcome to post it onto our platforms and we'll continue to create revenue from that. So we'll attract the people who want to advertise away from you and they'll advertise on Facebook. Media companies are furious because we in effect have been competing with them for more than a decade now. And media companies are saying it's not right that you use our content for free to make money off it. You've got to negotiate and bargain with us and come up for what is fair and just to pay for the journalists who help keep the Fourth Estate alive and ask the tough questions. Meta is giving a middle finger to the media and saying, too bad, so sad, we're not willing to do it. And the threat appears to be that if you don't give us that content for free, we'll just take Australian news off our platforms, which is what we've already done in Canada. And then who knows what happens from there. Start to think about the dangers.
Yeah, it's going back to that social licence, and we talk about conspiracy theories and they're abounding on social media without any recourse. But, Jono, to me, this is $1 trillion company. It's getting back to that social licence. A $2 trillion, is it?
Yeah.
I can't even actually get my head around how many zeros that is, to be honest. But look, it's a $2 trillion company. At the very least, he looks like a total tight ass. Well,
he is. And we also start, as we investigate this, to see the impact on families, the abuse online, what's being done to look after children, kids who have access to telephones in their rooms, the abuse that they're suffering on platforms like Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. How much do you need to be
as well? $2 trillion company?
This is a man who's been described to us as a digital dictator.
I mean, he couldn't possibly spend that money in 3 lifetimes.
Of course you couldn't. Of course you couldn't. And it's a man with enormous responsibility now. He has created this company. He's talked about moving fast and breaking things. Well, that's the point we're now at, the better part of 2 decades on. What does this now mean for society as we've eroded values and institutions? Where do we pick up from here and how do we move forward? That's what this is all about.
I cannot wait to see it, Jono.
Thank you.
Really good work.
Thank you.
And I know you put a lot of time and effort, blood, sweat and tears into it. So
yeah, well, as they sung in Les Miserables, one more day. We'll get there.
Okay, we'll see you soon. So, Tech Tyrants is the name of that documentary, Facebook's War on Australia. That will premiere tomorrow night to the great relief of Jono at 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. One not to miss.